Lame duck lawmakers want a raise, and the ticket tax fight is on. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Kathy Kandinsky, the State House reporter for the Columbus Dispatch, Joe Ingles, State House reporter for Ohio Public Radio, Gene Krebs, former state legislator, and Ray Miller, publisher of the Columbus African American Journal. It was a busy week filled with long days for Ohio legislators, but that's what happens when you try to jam 6 months of lawmaking into 3 weeks after an election. The lame duck session is wrapping up. Among the bills passed by the GOP-dominated House and Senate, 2 anti-abortion bills, the so-called heartbeat bill, and another bill that bans the procedure of dilation and evacuation called dismemberment by anti-abortion groups. Lawmakers also passed prison sentencing changes that would allow for shorter or longer prison terms, depending on whether inmates have been naughty or nice behind bars. Lawmakers increased benefits to survivors of fallen police officers and firefighters, but they combined that with a pay raise for themselves that would kick in next year. Kathy Kandinsky, assess this lame duck session. Was it pretty routine as they go, or was there any urgency to it?
I think it was pretty routine. It was, and there was just as much that didn't pass of significance that passed of significance. You know, they fell back on the Stand Your Ground bill. They didn't do that, but they passed 2 abortion bills that are likely to face vetoes from the governor. We'll see. The big question remains now is, will the legislature come back in during the Christmas break to override those vetoes?
The controversial this week, Joe, was the pay raise.
Yes.
And not necessarily the principle of the pay raise, but what it was linked to as well, the survivors' benefits.
Right. It was a bill that really had bipartisan, widespread support. It basically ramped up, gave better benefits to survivors of police officers, firefighters who are killed on the job. And everyone loved that, right? And so then they attached this pay raise bill, which is kind of caustic, you know, with a lot of people. And they put that on there, and they basically put lawmakers in the position of, if you want to support these people that you all love, you got to vote for this pay raise. So it was kind of a weird position. You couldn't vote for it or against it without having a problem there.
2 former lawmakers on the panel today.
We've never seen that happen before,
never.
have we?
Absolutely
oh my
never.
God.
You know, one of the interesting things that you have to keep in mind is there hasn't been an increase in 10 years. Legislators tend to be a bit afraid, really, of voting for one, so it ends up being in a lame duck session. That period, after the election and before the swearing in January. So when you look at the minimal increase, I would say for the next 10 years is what's being proposed. It's like 1.75% per period
for
time
10 years.
Frame. Exactly.
It brings the base salary from about $61,000 to $73,000. And lawmakers, Gene, they don't have to act on this if this passes for another 10 years.
Right. The difficulties you're going to encounter here politically is, one, wages, simply the nominal wage has not been keeping up. I think also the economy is not uniformly good everywhere across the state in all categories, communities, subsets. In a lot of those communities, it's quite rough, and I think people are going to look at this and going, you're making $60,000 a year now. I think what they could have done is gone after the legislative. They could have given themselves a raise if they had also tackled pension reform. And this is one of the things, as you know, from sitting down and talking. You ever get current and former members together? They always say, so how many years you got in? Yeah. It sounds like they're in prison. It's how many years they got in their PERS, their retirement system. And that perverts the whole structure of much of what we see going on there, because that's why they always want to suck up to the governor. It's because they can always get themselves one of those cushy jobs.
And they're rolling back health benefits in one of the pension plans right now, so it's a good point to make.
Yeah.
Getting back to the abortion bills, Kathy, do you think the governor will veto both of them? He's already said he's going to veto the heartbeat bill, but the other one, the so-called dismemberment bill.
He hasn't said on that one. I hate to speculate on it. It affects about 3,000 abortions a year in Ohio, so it's not the most common method, but it will have an impact for sure.
Joe, just the last gasp of, the Republicans are coming back in January. Why the flurry of these bills trying to put the governor on the hot seat when Mike DeWine, who's very much anti-abortion, would would likely sign one or both of these.
He would likely sign one or both of them. But the thing is that this also puts the governor in a position where he's making a statement on these issues. And he's going to, well, we don't know for sure, but let's just say that it looks pretty darn good that he's going to run in 2020. And when he does that, this is going to come up, and this is going to be something they look at. Also, there's the whole thing of putting it out there next year. You're going to have new members, and they might feel differently on this. So it might be harder. It might be an uphill battle to get it through the legislature.
There's no guarantee.
And I think that's one of the interesting things. So back in years gone by, the lame duck was often when the General Assembly would raise taxes. Okay, the opposite is going on this time. They are spending money like crazy, and I think it has to do. And I have to give full credit to my good friend John Bagala, who, in your sister publication, the Akron Beacon Journal, came out with about the state appropriation limitation, or SAL. And I believe what they may be trying to do is, before the end of this year, inflate the SAL numbers so they actually have more appropriation room in the next budget.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Ray,
Well, also on that point, I mean, what's so interesting is how the debate on abortion is always led by the men, and the white men, quite frankly, in the General Assembly. In issues like rape and incest and so forth, it seems to me that the woman would have something to say about that, given that she's the person who's carrying the baby, who just might be her sister in the case of incest. So I think there's issues that we've got to look at from that perspective as well. Who's developing the public policy, and who's it impacting?
I would say in this particular case, though, the heartbeat bill, the prime leader of that has been Representative Christina Hagan, the Republican Hagan. There's two Hagans in the House. We both served with her husband, the other Hagan's husband, and she's been the one leading this, and she has 3 babies herself right now, including
Any from rape or incest?
I would.
See, that's not your choice when you're raped or your father is having sex with you.
There's a woman actively involved in this debate from the Republican side, though.
Typically there is.
getting to now you both served in the legislature, both sat through lame duck sessions. Are they a good idea, Ray?
No. Just bottom line, no. I mean, there's some cleanup things that need to be done, but I think we could do away with lame duck sessions altogether.
Sometimes, some important legislation gets passed in these that gives some lawmakers cover, not necessarily just pay raises, but controversial things that people tend to like later on. Gene, is there a tool that can be useful for some things?
I think, once again, it goes back to, I think what we're seeing is a paralysis by the pension system. I think that once they get in, so many of them have come here from city council, township trustee, and in doing so, they've embedded themselves into this pension system, and they're afraid to lose it. And that's why I think I think a substitute for this whole term limit mania sweeping the nation is, if you do pension reforms, basically increase their pay, but take them out of health care, which means they have to go out and get their own health care, okay, and take them out of the pension system. I think you're going to see a different reaction to them, more bravery, if you will.
All right, the fight to be the next House Speaker has taken a strange turn. This is a Republican fight. The current House Speaker, Ryan Smith, wants to keep his job in the next session. Former House Speaker Larry Householder wants his old job back. Behind the scenes, jockeying has prevented a vote among GOP House members. Now labor unions reportedly are lobbying Democrats in the House to support the Republican Householder. Apparently, Householder has promised to block anti-union legislation like a future right-to-work bill. Gene Krebs, there are strange bedfellows, and then there are strange bedfellows. What do you make of this?
Actually, 2 years ago, I started telling people, do not be surprised if Householder does not have to go to the D's, make some deals to become Speaker, to which everybody wanted to know what illegal crop I was growing on my farm. But I served with Larry Householder. I know how he thinks, and this is well with it. And the fact is, you're being a former Democrat legislator, if the labor unions call you up and say, this is what we want, it carries an undue amount of weight, I would believe.
Didn't with me. We tended to agree on the major policy issues. but not just straight politics. And this is straight politics.
The labor unions have courted the Republicans recently. I mean, the Republicans have been the majority in the House and Senate for years now, and you've seen them come and get involved in other bills on the Republican side as well. Unemployment compensation system comes to mind first, but there's others.
Unions have given money to Republican candidates, Joe, because they know
That's
that
right.
at this point, they got to try to influence who they can, and there just aren't
That's
enough
right.
Democrats to influence.
That's right. And you see that in the policies too, because remember, Senate Bill 5, we haven't seen that come up again, have we? And I can't help but believe that maybe it's because the labor unions are putting so much pressure there. But you know, the other thing is that you look at this fight and it's getting really nasty. And it was nasty back in the spring when Speaker Smith, now Speaker Smith, got the appointment. And so it's going to be nasty going into January. And the thing is that there's going to be probably a Democrat, Fred Strayhorn, who will also be running, who will be siphoning off some of those votes as well. So it'll make it real interesting.
You see Democrats voting for Larry Householder if it came down to it?
There's a possibility that Democrats are pretty deep in the minority in both houses. And if there's some trade-offs that could be gained, there just might be a few people who would be willing to vote for him. I know he's approached the entire Black Caucus, and
Larry Householder has?
The numbers are higher there than ever in the history of the state. Unfortunately, you're in the minority, but you've got more African-American legislators than ever before. So some people just might be listening and be willing to support him.
What's in it for the Black Caucus
I
to
think it's a
support Larry
big
Householder?
game with Larry, to be honest with you. I mean, he loves politics. He loves playing the game. He understands the power of that office, having been there before as the Speaker of the House. But if he doesn't win, I don't think he's going to lose any sleep about it. He'll come back and he'll be the Speaker in the next term.
And I also think that what motivates Larry Householder so much is he feels that Appalachia has been, mistreated. It's had its resources stripped out. Forests were all cut down, made into charcoal. Coal was mined. Streams to acid. And Larry has a strong sense of helping the disadvantaged.
Yep, he does.
And I think that's what may actually draw the Black Caucus. I don't want to speak for them. My powers of telepathy only work within eyeshot of each other, because I can read your mind, but I can't read anybody else's mind. But my point is the fact that I think that's what his pitch is going to be, and he has a long record of that, and I think it'll be agreed to.
You got to give him credit for reaching out, because neither of the Republican candidates has the votes they need to win the speakership. So, you got to do something to come up with more votes. This may be what
Come
helps.
up with Nancy Pelosi skills. Trade-off.
How odd is it, Joe, for this not to be handled privately? In the Republican caucus, to work it out, they come out and they vote unanimously for their speaker. Usually that's the way it goes.
Yeah, usually that is the way it goes. But politics has been, all the politics, it's all been weird lately. I mean, ever since 2016, nothing goes as planned, right? I mean, it's...
Actually, this also occurred in North Carolina, I think in '98 or so. They also had a similar situation where they ended up having power shared between the R's and the D's in one of the chambers there. And everybody went, whoa, because it worked remarkably well. They got substantial legislation. Pay to play was squelched for 2 years. And it was a very good scenario.
The way Willie Brown became the
gonna work out
Speaker in
that way.
California.
I forgot
He
about
got
that
strong
one.
support on the Republican side.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Gene, is Ray correct that if Larry Householder does not become Speaker, he just patiently waits his turn?
If I do not believe in gambling, but if I were to gamble, I would agree with Ray. I would put money down on that.
All right. John Kasich continues to reflect on his past and future as he wraps up his 8 years as Ohio's chief executive. He's doing a series of interviews, some speeches. He'll speak to the Columbus Metropolitan Club this week. In every one of these appearances, he is asked the same things. Are you running for president, and will you run as a Republican or independent?
If you're going to run as a Republican, you have to have a sense that if you get into primaries, you can win. So right now, probably can win, but that's today. It's ever-changing.
It is ever-changing, Joe. Each week we try to read the tea leaves. This week it seems like he doesn't think he can win and he might not run.
You know what? I would be shocked if he doesn't run. I mean, just when I left the office today, he was on CNN. So we're seeing him so much out there on the national platforms. He's got a lot of interviews. He's traveling a lot, going to New Hampshire. I don't think a whole lot of people go to New Hampshire at this time of year just for
skiers
fun.
go. He wants to go skiing.
Well, maybe skiing. I don't know. But he's doing a whole lot that looks like a presidential candidate. And I'm almost assuming that he's running. I'd probably be more shocked if he's not running.
Assume that he wants to run, I mean, I think is the assumption. But this week it seemed like he started talking about other things. I think he's seeing that there's just not a path for him to run for president, at least not in the Republican Party. And I think he long ago decided that he can't run as an independent. So this week we heard him start talking about things like maybe being a news anchor, maybe doing a talk show. I think that's where he's likely to
Wouldn't it
end
be
up.
exciting, though, to have
Wouldn't it be exciting?
John Kasich running for president and Sherrod Brown at the
would
same
be
time? Really,
beyond
that's
That would be a reporter's dream.
absolutely. I mean, it was
Yes.
just too much fun.
Is it money, Gene? I mean, you've got to raise money to run for president of the United States. It has to be hard for John Kasich right now to raise money with a Republican president who is still popular among Republicans.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think what Kasich is counting on, this is going to send everybody watching this off to the Google, is you want to look up a disjunctive presidency. And that is the last gasp of that particular ruling coalition. And I think what you're seeing, this is from reading the political science books and everything, but what you're seeing here is I think that Kasich's advisor is looking to see that if Trump is a disjunctive president, then that creates an opening for Kasich either in the primary. By the last one we had was Jimmy Carter. Before that was Herbert Hoover. He has an opening then. But it's the money. And that means that, and by the way, we're only, 13 months away from filing deadline? Okay? That's political insider speak for you right there. We're 13 months. We're 13
You
months.
need to have this fundraising going, Ray.
Yeah.
It seems early, but it's not.
He should already have $100 million in
I'm
the
still
bank.
trying to process the disjunctive president. I'm trying to determine whether that's the president that goes to prison right after the election. But, but yeah, you've got to raise an awful lot of money to run for president. You've got to have it from broad sources.
And as long as Trump's still running, and he announced his campaign manager today, I think, Ohio guy. As long as Trump's running, that's where the money's going to go. I mean, like him or not, it's really difficult to defeat an incumbent.
And what Trump's counting on is that he's a transformative president. He's what immediately follows a disjunctive. He is attempting to be that. He's attempting to rearrange the coalition. So we'll find out if this coalition sticks by him or not.
Ray, getting back to Sherrod Brown, George Will this week wrote a flattering column saying that Sherrod Brown could be a viable candidate or a strong candidate. Also, the New Yorker had a piece about Sherrod Brown. He's getting a lot of buzz. He's got a haircut. He combed his hair.
I saw the headline on Will on his article. Sherrod has his own brand, and he's always been very clear about labor and supporting workers. He's the champion, for workers throughout the state, and I'm sure most of the country. He's going to be a very strong candidate. He's just clear as a Democrat, and yet progressive at the same time.
And he brings strength in the areas that the Democrats really need. Those states that went to Trump, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, those industrial states that really that he has a lot of support in.
Yeah.
Well, and it speaks to issues that people are really concerned about. People are concerned about jobs and the economy, going to school, being able to afford college, being able to afford a home, a standard of living. Those are things that Sherrod Brown routinely talks about, and it resonates with a lot of people.
At this point, Gene, would you be surprised if Sherrod Brown did not make a couple of trips to Iowa and New Hampshire?
Oh, I expect him to, but it goes back to this question we talked about earlier. Where is the money going to come from? Who's it going to go to? And the moneyed elite of both parties in this country will begin to decide who they're going to put their money behind. They learned a lesson from the Republicans last time. 16 people running besides Trump, and no one could figure out who to put their monny behind. So they spread it around like, let's see, fresh, warm butter on hot toast, and evenly, and didn't do anything.
From a political, put Trump aside, Republicans won the White House with that system.
Yeah, but basically what you had was a hostile takeover, according to some folks of the Republican Party, by Trump. I think that what you're going to see this time is you're going to see the Democrats will figure out who has the best shot. the money will coalesce. If Trump runs into difficulties, I think the same thing will occur on the Republican side, and you're going to see the money then coalesce around who they think is the best shot. Pence?
I don't think so, Jay.
Case?
I think that's the old way. I think things are changing so much in politics today. You've got more people running who have never been engaged in politics before and winning against incumbents. I don't think we're going to have that coalescing of the, or whatever the word you might want to use for,
Everybody
the
thinks they
Bucks
have a
being
shot.
over here. I think things are changing for the better, and we're becoming truly a better democratic nation.
I don't think Tina Maharath is going to run for president.
She's from Hawaii, correct?
Yeah, and they also
No, that's the new. That's the new. No, that's the new. No, that's the new state senator for the 3rd district here in Franklin County, who spent $100, got outspent by $1 million. The old Franklin County Democratic Party disowned her, and she still managed to win.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
Things are becoming far more democratic.
But at the national level,
And actually, it was $2 million they spent against her. I think she had about $100.
yeah.
No, it was more than that, but it was
She had a D
terribly,
next to her name,
terribly
and that's all it
disproportionate.
took.
Well, yeah. Well, my apologies to Tina and the senator from Hawaii. Anyway, before wrapping up its session, Ohio lawmakers gave the Columbus Crew and its owners a nice gift. $15 million for its proposed stadium in downtown Columbus. Supporters say the state aid would keep future owners of the Crew from moving out of the state because the state money means the Crew would be subject to the Modell law. That bars teams getting public help from skipping town. Columbus City Council this week okayed $50 million for infrastructure improvements around the stadium. They did so as they approved a 5% tax on tickets to Crew games and most other sports and entertainment events in Columbus. Tax opponents vowed to bring the issue to the ballot. Ray Miller, over the years, you have fought or seen or been through many of these stadium financing, arena financing controversies. Is this a good idea to public money for the Crew?
We don't have enough time to really talk about the history. I was with Jack Gibbs Jr. last night at an event at Lawrence Funderburg's home, and his father pushed for public financing of the arena and was opposed almost on straight racial grounds. And then now they want to come back with let the public support it once again. I think we have to keep in mind that it's not the city council's money. It is the people's money that we're talking about. It's taxpayers' funds. And when you add those increases potentially to all of the other increases, whether it's schools, whether it's the zoo, whether it's, you name it. I mean, all of the various sources, the metro park levies and all of those kinds of things. When you add all of that in, what about Miss Jones over here trying to pay all of those taxes while we're talking about increasing for arts and culture and all of those kinds of things, over here? Understand that it's just not the cities, it's just not the government's money, it is the people that we're talking about. We've always got to advance our city. And arts and entertainment play a crucial role in the advancement of your city. Columbus is the most progressive, the growing city in the state right now. And so you've got to do those things that make you competitive, not only with this city, but throughout the state and the country.
So there's some things taxpayers should do.
Yeah, it's supporting, but you also look at what you get out of it as a policymaker.
Gene, if you come from out of town, you live out in Western Ohio, you
Right.
have to pay that 5% tax on, symphony or whatever,
That's
punk
fine.
rock concert you want to go to. You're going to be upset about it?
No, not really. Though I do think it's interesting that Cincinnati got $5 million, Columbus got 15, which proves something.
For their Crew stadiums, for their soccer stadiums.
For the
yes.
soccer stadiums, which just simply proves that the state loves Columbus 3 times as much as they love Cincinnati.
3 times the size of Cincinnati.
You look at the metro. Look at the metro.
I think you have to look at capital funding on a whole, though. I mean, there's been a lot of money.
I'm
Okay.
teasing. I'm teasing.
Quarter Horse Congress is exempt, Joe, because they don't charge for tickets. They only charge for parking. $25 to park at the fairgrounds, but you get in for free.
Yeah, that's funny.
You don't have to buy a ticket, so no tax.
It's just a different column there,
Yeah.
Look, the good news is that as compared to other cities that are spending $800 million to attract a professional sports team, this is relatively modest. But I will point out, like I always do, when I talk about professional sports, it's a fraud. And it's because you can't call it the Columbus Crew. It's not owned by the citizens of Columbus. It's not like the Green Bay Packers, who's owned by 112,000 shareholders.
You can call it the Columbus Crew.
No, you
Right.
can't.
We'll get to our final record, off the record parting shots. And Ray Miller up first.
That's a good one. I think the initiative that Senator Charlita Tavares has put on the table in the General Assembly to have a 400-year look, given that when we go into 2019, to have a 400-year look at progress made by African Americans in the country.
Okay, Gene.
The best legislator of Central Ohio, Mike Duffy of Worthington, is being forced out by term limits. And I think they should have carved out an exemption for people named Mike Duffy in the Constitution.
Joe.
Well, you know, I think we saw something this week. We've been seeing it in the last few months, and that is this city versus county rural area combat. You know, we've seen it in this debate over how the capital budget is spent, and I think going into this next year, that's going to be even more pronounced.
Kathy.
Well, as we know, the governor's going to veto at least one of the two abortion bills. The question is, will the legislature come back the week after Christmas, the week of Christmas? And I say I doubt it. So I think those bills may have to come back next year.
All right. And of course, OSU graduates on Sunday. I guess you'd call it fall graduation, winter graduation. And that always means we lose a couple students who have worked with us for a long time. Emily Kapp, Akasha Porche, they are leaving us. Good luck to them. Thanks for all your hard work here on Columbus on the Record. And congratulations to all graduates on Sunday. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Check us out online. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. You can connect to all of that at our website, wosu.org/COTR. For our crew and panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.